system your employees engage with daily? Well, often, sometimes, multiple times a day. It's not the ERP, it's not the payroll, not the HR, it's the workforce management. From time clocks to mobile apps, it's evolved beyond tracking. Workforce management now stands as a vital communication tool. This brings us to our second panel discussion that delves into significance of being digitally savvy and smart in overcoming workforce challenges. It's time to discover how it's shaping the future of manufacturing human-machine collaboration. It's now time to invite our panelists for this interesting session to come on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, let's clap and welcome Mr. Harshvardhan Kundalkar, Chief People Officer, Deomar Truck Innovation Center, India. Let's also welcome Ms. Kavita Kaushik, Director Quality Humans, India. Let's also welcome Shailesh Sharma, Director Operations SKF India and Southeast Asia. Let's also welcome Ms. Mohini Kelkar, Director of Business Development Grindmasters. Let's also welcome Praveen Kuruvalli, Head of People Strategy and HR Center of Excellence, ArcelorMittal, Nippon Steel, India. To moderate the session, I'd like to invite Mr. Ravi Pandey, Head of Marketing, UKG, India, to moderate the session.
So a very good afternoon. So as we know, Indian industry is poised to experience an unprecedented growth, and a sizable portion of that is going to come from manufacturing. So from the very beginning today, we all have been so proud of being part of manufacturing family. And in this era of rapid technological advancement, where automation, artificial intelligence, and data-driven decision-making are becoming commonplace, the demands for smart workforce management is also becoming mainstream. So there was a survey which was done by UKG's Workforce Institute, which was a mental health survey. And in that survey, we uncovered that people at job, they are feeling a lot mentally stressed. And what was very, very interesting that came out in that survey is that it's not their spouses, it's not their doctors who are impacting mental health the most. It's actually the people managers at job. So there is something in this job that we need to fix. And we cannot fix it unless we understand what are the real problems on ground and how can we leverage technology to assist us in resolving these problems. So we are here with the thought leaders and industry insiders to unravel the intricacies of managing workforce in today's era. So my first question is to you, Mr. Harsh. How has the landscape of manufacturing changed in recent years, and what are the key factors driving these changes?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the question. And I think manufacturing industry is undergoing a renaissance. And it is, gone are those days when we were in the Industrial Revolution, and what we see now is a complete and exciting change of this industry, where it is becoming a combination of all three spheres of technology, whether you talk about manufacturing or mechanical, you talk about electronics, or whether you talk about technology or IT. And this is completely changing the universe of manufacturing. Some of the trends that are going to, and I try to zoom out a bit because so much of knowledge has already been shared on this dais here, but I'll try to zoom out a little bit in terms of what I have heard and what I feel and experience on the floor daily. Manufacturing, there are going to be 3 or 4 levers that are going to transform manufacturing. I think the first thing is going to be your consumer. Gone are those days where the consumer will buy what you produce. This is the age of building to promise and building to order. So that's what hyper-personalization is all about. The consumer is going to need a personalized product, whether you talk about a B2B or a B2C. Hyper-personalization is here. At the same time, the agility in which you can get the product to your consumer is going to matter. So the first trend or the first thing that is going to change is your consumer demand and how he is going to look at your products. The second thing, I think what has been discussed in this forum here from the morning is technology. And technology is going to affect everything. Whether you talk about technology in terms of manufacturing, technology in terms of people management, or technology in terms of prediction, you know, how are you going to predict whether it is people trends, whether it is manufacturing trends, whether it is technology trends? And so prediction is going to be very critical, and technology is going to be leveraged here. So second aspect is technology. I think the third aspect is environment and the concerns related to environment and the goals that we all drive, which is the ESG goals. That is going to be very, very pivotal in terms of how how this world is going to be shaped up. Now, whether you talk about propulsion technology, whether you talk about the way in terms of how you look at your environmental goals and so on. So I think environment is going to play a crucial role. Your consumer or your consumer or your customer is going to be ready to pay you more if you are at the top end of your ESG goals. So that's the third point. The fourth, I feel, is what is going to change is obviously, and the first and the most pivotal, I think, are building a very dynamic workforce. And why I say dynamic workforce and I don't say DEI and so on only, which, you know, could sound a bit cliche, but there are two things in when I say dynamic workforce. One is a workforce that is ready to consistently learn, okay, and is consistently ready to transform itself, and employers have to be ready to promote and to facilitate this transformation and this continuous learning. And hence you have to build for roles of tomorrow, right from the lowest in the hierarchy to the highest in the hierarchy will have to change. Last but not the least is also the DEI factor. You know, how you are going to build a dynamic and a diverse workforce and how you are going to create an inclusive environment. I think these are the four factors that are going to see this industry transform or are already transforming in this industry in a large scale.
Very well said. So the key factors being consumer, technology, ESG, EI, sustainability, and a dynamic workforce. Now, talking about this dynamic workforce a little bit more, I'll now put my next question to Kavita ma'am. As per our manufacturing survey, there has been 72% increase in overtime over the last 12 months, primarily in those manufacturing organizations which have seen a rapid growth in their production. With increased demand or due to the unexpected workloads, how can you ensure that the product or service quality is consistently maintained and not compromised?
Thanks for the question, Ravi. And I have been in this manufacturing and quality field for almost 27 years now. And I have seen all the ups and downs in terms of supply chain challenges, maybe as recent as 3 years back when we faced with COVID, then the Suez Canal crisis, then the chip crisis, and they'll continue to come. Okay, so and in all these crises, when the supply chain is very stressed and you may not have the right material at right time inside your premises, that's where, people go in for doing overtimes and people going this. And I think this would be, the supply chain crisis would continue for a certain period of time because of the big boom in the manufacturing which is there. So there are 2-3 things which I really feel is very important. First of all, from a quality perspective, when I look at how do we ensure reliability and quality, even this first important piece is the behavior-based quality. We have always been speaking on behavior-based safety so far, but I think behavior-based quality wherein we change the attitude, mindsets and behaviors of people working directly on the shop floor. So I think that's the most important piece. And I'll tell you just as an example, at Cummins, we have been working on this for almost 3 to 4 years now. Okay, how do we look at that change? Because the hardcore people on the shop floors are the people who also deliver quality. Okay, so I think that's one piece of it. The second, which I feel is, as we are now in Industry 4.0 and we will be soon going to Industry 5.0, their very important piece is these pain points where it's the stations which are bottleneck stations or which are critical to quality stations, how do we make them more intelligent? How do we make them more Poka-yoked so that people work smarter? they don't work harder. And that's where even if people have to do overtime, they will be happy to come to work smarter rather than working harder. So I think that's the second piece. Third, which I feel is the seniors in the company, the senior leadership should walk the talk on quality. And that is how we'll go down in terms of even the person working on the shop floor. And he or she will be conscious that whatever work he or she needs to do will be with quality. So I think that's the third. The fourth, which I really feel is in terms of how do we keep on training our workforce. Just not training with their work, what they need to do, but on the other intelligent tools, which they can use from time to time and contribute towards this. And the second last point which I feel here is how we can ensure that while we develop products in the future, we are developing them for right first time for manufacturability, and also ensure that there are POCAEX by design on the shop floor. I think that's one piece. And I think the last thing which I come up with is our supplier base. Okay, so the supplier base, specifically the tier 1 I think are good, but the tier 2 there are challenges, which really create a lot of. So how do we work with them to upgrade in terms of their quality and in their competency? So I think these are the 5-6 things which I feel will really help to ensure quality and reliability even during the challenging times.
Very well said. And, behavioral quality, attitude of people, upskilling, all of them become very core to being able to deliver quality on ground. And it has to be all inclusive, not just our employees and tier 1 suppliers, tier 2. Yeah. Excellent. Very well said, Kavita. From here, let's dive a little bit more into smart workplace. And my next question is for you, Saleshar. How do you envision the integration of smart workforce management practices to optimize productivity, reduce operational costs, and ensure seamless alignment of workforce skills with the evolving demands of the industry?
So, manufacturing industry is undergoing through a massive transformation, as we see, and mainly driven by technology, like digitalization, artificial intelligence, and whatnot. That means our factories are becoming smarter. If factories are becoming smarter, our people need to be smarter. And for them to manage, we need a smarter solution, for sure. So, of course, that is very important, and probably COVID has taught us to work more smartly. During that tenure, I think all of us, probably we learned something new way of working, and that is what is now still continuing. Even during that time, I think we used our mobile phones, even for our blue-collar people in SKF, we gave a lot of training. We engaged them very well for the many quiz, many learning experiences, and whatnot. So we already know now where we are. Technology is more coming in. We are more now robotic kind of facilities we have. We are putting a lot of sensors. We are putting a lot of technology so that people can manage their work very well. So now when workforce management, what exactly it means basically is what we need is right people at right place at right time, right? This is all about one of the best thing. We have done a lot of many things, and definitely it improves productivity, efficiency, and cost. For white-collar workforce, there are many good practices are available. Darwin box is there for leave management. Now we have pay slip management. Everything is now on its own. But the challenge is for blue-collar. Blue-collar, we have two kind of people. One is who are coming new, and one some old people who are not that technology savvy. So that is something which comes in. We need to teach them to use, of course, a smartphone everybody carries. So that is for sure is there. But probably something more is required to be done. Workforce management tool can help us to optimize the labor hours. Many times I have seen, and this is still a big challenge for us, we need a huge amount of flexibility. And we know there is a cyclic, we can't say recession, but downturn sometime. And when we are downturn, our top line is down, but our workforce is exactly the same. We don't know what to do. And it can go other way around when there is a seasonality and we have a lot of demand, but we don't have workforce. So that means we need a solution which can provide a predictive analysis for us, which can tell us, okay, now this is what going to happen, and we can be prepared well.
Excellent.
Right?
Very well said. Very
Yes.
well said. So, to sum it up, I mean, essentially, factories are getting smarter. There's more automation there. We have smart people working, and we need smart workforce management solution to be able to drive productivity, efficiency, etc. within the organization, which is a very, very good point brought forward. Now, taking this a little forward, and ma'am also highlighted that learning is key. So, my next question is for you, Praveen sir. How do you nurture a culture of learning and workforce agility within your organization through digital transformation? So, as sir mentioned, there are times when we have got a large workforce but less things to produce, and vice versa. There is a production demand, but can we really tap into the larger workforce available in India, but it's not available within our country, within our company, right? So all this requires agility to be built in, not just to be able to utilize people within our organization, but be able to dive into the larger pool, maybe of contract workforce, and see how quickly we can bring them in, scale it up to be able to meet the production demands. So over to you.
It's really a pleasure to be here, first of all, among this August panel. There are some very wonderful points, valid points that have been made. And when you asked about two things, learning, culture of learning, and then the agility, right? I would actually see the question is learning agility, and that's what Hirsch spoke about, right? The ability to unlearn and relearn is going to be key. And I'll just give you a little bit of a statistics that really caught my attention. World Economic Forum in 2017 said that on an average, the half-life of a skill is 5 years. What does that mean? That in 5 years, the effectiveness with which you will work will go 50% down. And when they did the same survey and analysis in 2021, it was 4 years. So it might be much faster, much more rapid in a knowledge industry for obvious reasons than in a manufacturing industry. But I don't think it's very different for a manufacturing industry. So when that is happening, the implication is very clear that there is going to be a huge skill gap. And it is those organizations, those are able to effectively plan and across the skills, like you said, it's not just the engineering skills or the higher order R&D skills, but it's also the skills that are required to operate, for instance, a blast furnace in a steel industry are going to be very different. 15 years back when I joined the steel industry, I still saw people going very close to the blast furnace. Now I don't see that so often. Why? The technology has evolved. So I think it's extremely critical that when we speak about learning agility, it's not the learning agility of an individual, it's actually the learning agility of the organization that is going to make a difference. So if I speak a little bit more about steel industry, which is as core manufacturing as it can get, the focus is very simple. The focus is to produce safe, sustainable, and reliable operations. Produce steel through immense reliability. And reliability in itself means predictability. That is, I know that when I put this input, this is the quality that comes out. And this is true for most manufacturing organizations, right? And what does that mean for agility is when there is so much premium on predictability and quality, your ability to experimentation, which is fundamental to innovation, takes a slight hit. And that's where I think digital transformation and technology is going to play a key role. The kind of experimentation we were able to do 20 years back, 30 years back is going to be very different, because now we can use Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning, that will immensely accelerate the way we can predict and we can create models without carrying the risk of failure. So I think when you look at that entire digital transformation, and if as an organization we are moving towards manufacturing 4.0 or industry 4.0, the imperative on HR, and I come from HR, so imperative on HR is making sure that use the same level of digital transformation to accelerate learning and create new careers. Because like when I first started, I said the skill, and you might say, oh, and what is going to be different? It's going to be the same mechanic, it's going to be the same electrician. No, it is actually, having been in the industry for so long, I can see that the way you would recruit an electrician was very different from what you used to do 15, 20 years back. And the point is, our Indian, unfortunately, the education system doesn't yet support the accelerated, let's say, development within the curriculum. So that needs to come in the industry, and of course, there is a very important need for industry, academia, and R&D partnership to ensure that this acceleration comes to learning and continuous learning on workforce. And there are, and organizations have made immense progress in terms of digital learning, gamification, but I think that just need to be accelerated furthermore in the manufacturing industry to bring that agility that we are looking for.
Very well said. So, essentially what we are saying is, learning agility is essential because we are looking for outcomes that are predictable with quality. And in order to get that outcome, technology has helped, but there is more that is expected of it to bring about the learning agility that we are looking for. So, very well said. So, my next question is for you, Mohini ma'am. So, there has been a negative impact on productivity due to skill shortages. And 35% of manufacturing industry is saying, as per our recent survey, that this is the case. Now, could you share some insights into what organizations can do to mitigate the risk of skill shortage?
So, my first thought is, all of us, are we looking at manufacturing something at the low cost and looking only at the cost? It should not be so. And unfortunately, it is like this in most of the companies, most of the MSMEs. What we should look at, according to me, is to make something to the global standard and best possible thing. And I think the cost comes next. And that is what my company has been doing with the workforce available in the backward region of Marathwada. We are the only non-Japanese company installing a higher-end super finishing machine in Nissan, Japan, in the Japan factory. And so my whole point is the productivity, quality, everything will fall in place if you have robust manufacturing thought process. Your thought process has to be the best manufacturing process, a process which will create the output exactly at that values, what you are going to measure with the given values of input. And it is my observation, because we are exporting worldwide, that Indian companies care least about this, the robustness of the process. And they care more about the cost. Maybe it is not true with every company, but having robust manufacturing technology in place is the first thing which all of us, if we are looking at manufacturing, we should do, is what my sincere thoughts are. And that will, because even Chinese, we are working a lot with the Chinese companies, and Chinese or OEMs or tier 1 companies have totally different thought process as compared to the Indian companies when it comes to the manufacturing technology. Again, they don't worry about the equipment cost and the investment, but worry more about how consistent output, how productivity or how quality is going to come out of it. So all the questions like productivity, quality get addressed if you really invest into the right equipment, is what I think. Then secondly, coming to your point, the workforce that we hire needs to be upgraded to the skill levels of today. So all the machines that we are making now and what we used to make in 90s are totally different. The application is same, end application, but for the same application, more automation is in place. Because of that, the skill gap, if you need skill to achieve certain quality, then you will never get it, to my mind. Then you are too much dependent on the skilled workforce, right? But whereas automatic and robust manufacturing technology can be handled by alternate workforces, so you have the flexibility. How you will suddenly put somebody in a furnace to operate a furnace? You can do it only if there is a defined things and the equipment is automatic. Then it is easier to put the new workforce in place. So my answer is robust manufacturing is the key to all these, even skill and workforce and all that.
Very well said. So if we have robust manufacturing practices, we prioritize quality over cost, cost not being the only thing that we focus on, things will be better for manufacturers. Thank you, and very well said.
I think cost will fall in place with the. That is another wrong notion to my mind. If you have the robust manufacturing, if you take the overall cost, it will fall in place. Because otherwise, how will Chinese compete with us? Only because they have more robust manufacturing and high scale manufacturing, more automation in place. So they are less worker dependent or skill dependent to create the right quality for exports.
Excellent. Very true. So if Chinese are able to compete with us, it's only because they have put robust manufacturing processes in place, and that has led to the costs coming down. Now, when we talk of any business, including manufacturing, one thing which is very, very important, and there are multiple things that are important, of course. There are robust manufacturing practices, there are automation, there's AI in the process, there's Industry 4.0. But running all of this, behind all of this, is actually people. People at leadership levels, people at the mid-management levels, and people on the shop floor, the frontline workforce, as we like to call them. Now, the expectation of this frontline workforce has also changed over a period of time. Gone are the days when people were looking out for jobs where they could retire. Right? Their expectations are changing. And that requires organizations also to change. We are talking about hyper-personalization for customers. What about hyper-personalization for employees? Now, when I put this question to most manufacturers, they say that even though we want to hyper-personalize things for individuals, the challenge is it becomes too complicated for us to handle. We have to have method in place, right? So the idea is, now that we have got this expectation of employees which has changed, they expect more flexibility, they expect better treatment at work. How do we strike the right balance between ensuring that we are working within the operational boundaries of manufacturing and still be able to take care of the employee expectations? So, question to you, Kavita.
So here, I think 2, 3 things I'll just put in. When it comes to, as you rightly said, we are expecting a lot from the frontline people who are directly working either on machines or on stations, and that's the truth today. And they themselves also have a big expectation of what learning they are having and how they can move ahead, in their corporate journeys for their life inside the factory. So I'll just give you one example how this could be really brought about where it is win-win for both the corporate as well as for the individual. For example, in Cummins, we have something called as the team-based work system. Okay, so the directly frontline people on the shop floor is a safety person, there's a production person, there's a quality person, okay, there is a morale, that means there's an HR representative among themselves there. And they maintain how they are doing in terms of safety, quality, delivery, morale, and this. So that's one way. And they set their own rules within the overall processes which have been set by the plant. Okay, so that's one way which I really feel that we can bring about a responsibility which will be there with them, but still they work within the overall gamut of processes, which are there on the shop floors.
Yes, very well said.
Yeah.
So I was talking to one of the HR leaders in manufacturing, and what she said was the real need of the hour is to have policies that are different for different sections of people. Best would have been if we said that n is equal to 1, which essentially she meant that the policies are individualized to individuals depending upon how they would like to work. But then that is easier said than done. So, Harsh, my next question is for you. What do you think is realistically possible to do in manufacturing and how technology can help?
So what is possible in terms of from an employee
From employee standpoint.
standpoint? I think, when we talk about employees and policies that are employee-centric versus manufacturing or versus, the bottom line, right? That's what comes about as a question in terms of,
The constant
do I
tussle
build...
between operations and
Correct.
people.
The constant tussle between the operations and the employee and employee well-being. I think this, for me, goes hand in hand because what is at the center of this whole story is the employee. I think if the employee is well taken care of, I think most of your organizational challenges get taken care of. And I don't want to get into, big thinkers who have already said that, take care of your employees, they will take care of your customers, right? But I will give you some examples in terms of what we have done at our end in terms of creating policies which are very specific to the various personas that we have in our company. So some of the things that we are doing is what we have done is we've put our employees and their personas at the center and we've tried to create our wellness policies around that. Just to give you an example, we look at wellness very holistically and we look at wellness putting our employees. So we hire a lot of engineers who join us from all across India and who come to the city of Bangalore. And then they are a little bit lost in terms of who's now going to look after us. What should I do if I fall sick? So we have a policy for them for teleconsulting. Right? So youngsters come in and then they tell us that, oh, look, I fell ill, but we had something who we could call up a doctor and we could take an advice and get better. At the same time, when we look at leadership, we say that leadership and also our senior employees, these go through a different type of stress as well as different type of situations in life. And hence, we have brought in an AI-based health checkup facility for our employees beyond a certain age. So which has helped us in terms of guiding our employees, in terms of maintaining a proactive outlook to their health. At the same time, we are a young company, and we have a workforce where a lot of our employees and their children are going to get into an age where the biggest stress is going to be to the parents in terms of how do I guide my employees, or sorry, how do I guide my child towards the right career path. So we brought in a startup which is working with us in terms of helping and working with parents. How do they help their children find the right career path? And at the same time, they're working with the children in terms of helping them find the right career path. And we term this as parental wellness. So what we have told ourselves is we will put our employee in the center, and we will be there with the employee during the most critical and crucial stories or spaces of his life. And that's how we have tried to create an environment where an employee feels happy to come to work and is happy to solve the problems of tomorrow.
Very well said. So health and well-being is very, very important. And one of the aspects of well-being is the mental well-being as well. So I was in a meeting with one of the paint manufacturers in Pune, the CHRO. She was talking about stress at work. So she said that we have an ER team, and the ER team's job is to ensure that we are complying with different regulatory requirements with respect to workforce. For example, there are overtime limits that people can have every quarter. She says that when our ER team audits and finds instances of non-compliance, they would go ahead and confront the managers. And when they confront the managers would say, I need to meet my production targets, and I'll do what is required to meet that production target. My boss is not going to rate me well based on this compliance. My boss is going to rate me well based on whether or not I was able to get the job done. Right? And you won't understand, there are situations that happen on ground, and we have to get people to work. Not everybody would say yes to an overtime. Right? So I'm left with very few. So this was her challenge. I mean, both parties are right. What do I do to resolve this conflict? Now, she decided to use technology to help in this specific process. They went ahead and implemented solutions. Now, it was a solution which was AI-based. The manager would see the skills of all people who are reporting into him and would see what is the overall overtime consumed by each employee. And whenever he was to schedule overtime, the application itself will prompt the manager that you are trying to schedule this employee for an overtime. He has already clocked the highest overtime. Why don't you consider these other employees who are available and have the same skills? Now, doing so, the CHRO utilized technology not just to make the operations more efficient because the person has got greater visibility, but also to reduce stress at work. There are interventions which people take. They go on picnic, team building exercises, insurance policies. There are wellness initiatives, but the real stress happens on ground. So is there an example which anyone of you would like to share? Something which, some intervention that you took which made workplace a happier place in your organization?
I don't know if I will directly answer this question. I'll just go back to the point you did about the personalization and the expectation of the new workforce, right? I think there is a background to that, right? We all say that the expectations from the current generation, the new workforce is very different. But while that is true, it is also important to realize that it's not that the older generation did not have any expectations. It's just that the technology now enables and hence fuels that expectation even further, which is to say, when an employee or even a diploma engineer uses the technology that is freely available, he or she would expect the same at workplace. And I think it is very important for us as HR, as an organization, to reflect on the ability or how do we leverage technology to give that personalization, but that personalization is not because someone else's wants, but because ultimately it helps improve quality, productivity, etc. On the point of mental well-being, I think the previous speaker spoke about psychological safety. That is of paramount importance. And while we in our organization use tools that help us provide confidential access to employees in need, including their families, but at the at the bottom line, the important aspect is that has to be the environment, the culture on the shop floor, and hence the psychological safety is provided by one person, which is the manager, which is the supervisor of that person. And hence the first intervention, while we do all these technology interventions to help bring support mental well-being and psychological safety, is not to forget that we need to equip our managers to provide that psychological safety. And hence our interventions have also focused on how do we clearly define the role of supervisor, what does it mean, and what does it mean to be a supervisor with whom the employee feels connected and hence engaged. So I think bottom line, all the tools will work, but if we forget the support that is required for the manager, they will fail.
Very well said. So I was, on the similar lines, I was part of discussion in Indian Manufacturing Association. So there was a think tank who was talking about technology and use of it at workplace. And like you highlighted, it's not just about talking about psychological safety. We need to be able to equip our managers to and enable him to take care of that psychological safety, right? So on the same lines he was talking, and he said that 10 years back, when we talked about technology adoption, employees' smartphones had come, and people in their personal lives were using technology the most. The next best were the organizations, which had some technology implemented for people to use, and the laggards were government. Now, while technology adoption remains the highest with the people, the government has come the next. They have gone ahead and implemented next-gen apps like DigiYatra and all, and did that automation. And it's the organizations that are now laggards. So we need to be able to use technology much more, not just to ensure that our processes are set right. We have got sufficient level of automation within our manufacturing organizations, and but also that we are enabling the key stakeholders, people, to be able to take the right decisions that help support the processes, make the quality better, be able to schedule people better, optimize on cost, and be able to feel empowered to provide that psychological safety to people in our organization. So while, yeah.
Can I say something
sure,
about,
sure.
Regarding psychological safety, I feel that to some extent, learning, making every employee learn something all the time, which can also help the organization, because then you can do the multitasking. In our company, we constantly rotate the people. For example, a design engineer sitting in the design office cannot design an equipment well unless he goes to the customer and services the equipment that we are making. So such a rotation not only helps him thinking and not getting bored and landing up in a psychological issue, keep them motivated and challenged all the time. And I do believe that people, apart from salary, like challenges. it is often we, the top management, are fearing to put that challenge to certain person, thinking that he will not be able to do it, thinking of his capability not being that much. But I have seen even 12th standard pass out is working on CNC machines. He has learned how to commission a machine only because of the system of such rotation and giving them opportunities which otherwise you would never think of. If you give it to HR, they would say, what is his basic qualification, XYZ. Then he can get into only the role, some role like MN, not in the other role of P. You get my point.
Correct.
So this
Very-
is
very well
what can handle psychological issues and also help productivity. And more than that, see, in a company like us, we are not a production job. We are a customized machine maker. So unless I have a very motivated staff, I will not be able to deliver a global quality that we want to do. And so these things become very important for us to keep them engaged. And I'm happy to say here that for youngsters, because I think today manufacturing industry is facing a biggest challenge of attracting talent. And I think because we are lackluster, we are boring people, to be very frank. So we need to bring some glamour into ourselves and our jobs. Only then the millennials will come to us. Otherwise, they will get into IT. So we have done some kind of things for this. Traditionally, in engineering industry, you become manager after your hair is gray and or bald, and then you get into the manager role. What we have done is for millennium, we have special programs to develop their capabilities, giving them various inputs, and also giving them fast track. So that means somebody who is in the fast track can become a manager earlier than a normal route kind of thing. This has helped us retain and attract the talent. And also the pay scale, obviously, you have to pay well. And then how to be cost competitive in spite of the higher scale is something is up to top management to solve. You cannot blame the workers for that. So we have to solve that issue, but for sure we have to pay them well. That is one of the answers. And to keep the work-life balance, we are probably the first engineering company having 5 days a week and 0 overtime.
So,
So regarding overtime also, we realize that overtime is given just unnecessarily.
yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And thank you, panelists, for having a very involving discussion. So the time is up, and we can continue our discussion with the larger crowd off stage. So thank you very much for a very, very involving discussion.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you once again. To thank and felicitate our panel, I'd like to invite on stage, ladies and gentlemen, let's clap and welcome Mr. Kailash Zansari, Head Manufacturing Bajaj Auto. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Jata Vishnuraj, Editor Manufacturing Today, to come forward and felicitate our panelists. I'd like to invite Mr. Harshvardhan Kundalkar, Chief People Officer, Daimler Truck Innovation Center, India. Can we clap for Mr. Harshvardhan, everybody? We'd like to welcome Ms. Kavita Kaushik, Director Quality Humans, India. Mr. Shailesh Sharma, Director Operations, SKF, India and Southeast Asia. Ms. Mohini Kelkar, Director of Business Development, Grindmasters. Mr. Praveen Kuruvali, Head of People Strategy and HR, Center of Excellence, ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel, India. And our moderator, Mr. Ravi Pandey, Head of Marketing, UKG, India. Thank you for that wonderful panel discussion. Thank you for doing the honors. Thank you once again.